Okay, this begins our capital bond decision document meeting. I'd like to thank the Chair of Budget and Tax for working with me, along with the presiding officer, President Ferguson, and my vice chair, Senator Zucker, and all my committee members who've been very helpful. This has been a very easy process because everybody's been really helpful in trying to make sure our stimulus money goes to the places that really are hurting. And so I'm thankful for everybody here. So with that, I'd also like to thank Matthew Klein for all his work. And so Matthew, let's get going on the document.
I could start you off with the first agency, the Department of Disabilities, starting on page 1.
Okay.
DLS recommended to approve the $1.8 million authorization for accessibility modifications. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Okay, we concur with the House.
On page 2 in the Maryland Stadium Authority, the House added a little over $72.8 million to begin the design and construction of a new Department of Legislative Services building. There is a color page for your consideration that would reduce that to $40 million, as well as provide the necessary language that's required when projects are going to be cash flowed over multiple years.
Okay.
I'd move to modify the amount and adopt the 3 color pages.
Is there a second?
Correct. In addition to that, there are pre-authorizations. Page 3, a pre-authorization for $12 million for fiscal 2023. And I think we'll be sharing a color page on your screen later for pre-authorization for 2024.
Matt, that's up right now. So it can be in the same action.
Okay.
Okay, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Going on to the next agency, the Department of Aging, starting on page 4, DLS recommended to adopt narrative for an update on program administration and outreach. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Move to reject the House narrative.
Second. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
The next action in the Department of Aging on page 5 is to approve the $1.1 million authorization for the Senior Center Capital Grants Program. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Adopt.
Concur with the House.
On page 6, we have the Historic St. Mary's City Commission. The first action here is DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance to provide $4.8 million roughly in bonds for the Maryland Heritage Interpretive Center. The agency concurred and the first House adopted.
Concur with House.
Concur with the
Second.
House.
The next item here is a pre-authorization for fiscal 2023 for the same project for about $10.8 million. The agency concurred and the first House adopted.
Concur.
Second.
On the next page, we have a new Senate action. Here, this creates a new program for deferred maintenance with Historic St. Mary's and funds it with $2 million.
Okay, do we need to vote that?
Adopt. Second.
Move to adopt that? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the next page on page 8 is the Board of Public Works. There are 2 items on this first page and they can be done together to speed things up if you would like. The first is some narrative about an anticipated renovation project, and the second is $2.5 million for the construction contingency fund. Agency concurred, first House adopted.
Okay.
Move to concur with both items.
Second.
Okay, on page 9, the first one there is the Facility Renewal Fund. That's $30 million. The first House rejected this, reduced the funds, and asked that the administration bring general funds in for this project.
Concur with House.
Sure.
Okay, items 4 and 5 can also be done together. That's funding for the fuel storage tank replacement program and the State House exterior renovation. The agency concurred, first house adopted.
Concur on both 4 and 5.
Second.
On the next page, page 10, the first item here is the Washington County District Court edition. The first house modified this to replace it with general funds and yeah.
Concur with the House.
Okay, so we want to concur with the House there, right? Okay.
Concur with the House, yeah.
The next item here, item 7, is the new Court of Appeals building. This was 2.8 million. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Concur.
Concur. All right.
Okay, number 8 is giving back some money. It's deauthorization for $275,000. Project is done. Agency concurred. First house adopted.
Concur.
Concur.
On the next page, page 11, we have 3 actions here. They all relate to the new Courts of Appeals building. They're a pre-authorization in fiscal 2023 for 30 million, 2024 for 45 million, and 2025 for 24 million.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt all 3.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
On page 13 in the military department, the first item is for the Havre de Grace Combined Support Maintenance Shop, a little over $5 million of GO bonds. Agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
On pages 14 and 15, there's this additional Senate item for your consideration. This provides $25 million to the Resilient Maryland Revolving Loan Fund, which would be operated by MEMA. The authorization of this money is contingent on the enactment of Senate Bill 901, which would sort of create the framework for this fund. And in the event that the Senate bill does not get enacted, there are 2 projects identified in which $12.5 million would then flow to those projects. So the first is the Comprehensive Flood Management Program in the Department of the Environment. And the second is the Department of Legislative Services in the Maryland Stadium Authority.
Mr. Chairman, this is
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
this is the Senator Hester and you
Right.
right?
So what we decided to do is if the governor, for whatever reason, is uncomfortable with this and rejects this, half of it will go to DLS because they have 40 and they need another 12 to have the first 2 years of construction. The other half would go to flooding. But if he accepts it, we earlier did a pre-auth for 12 for DLS. So either way, we're going to get DLS taken care of. But these are 2 different ways we decided to do it. Okay.
Move to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
At page 16, you have the Department of Planning. The first recommendation there concerns the Maryland Archaeological Conservation Laboratory. DLS recommended reducing the authorization by $2 million due to the construction schedule. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Okay. Concur?
Second recommendation concerns the African American Heritage Preservation Grant Program. DLS recommends concurring with the authorization. The agency concurred, the first house adopted.
Concur?
Recommendation number 3 concerns the Maryland Historical Trust Capital Grant Fund. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's authorization. Agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Sure.
On page 17, recommendation number 4 concerns the pre-authorization of funding for the Maryland Archaeological Conservation Laboratory. So you've taken a reduction of $2 million in fiscal 22. This would provide for $2 million in fiscal 23, aligning with the construction schedule. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Concur?
Okay, on page 18 is Department of Information Technology. There's 2 projects here that are linked together. These support the Maryland First radio communication system. The first item provides funding for the 2022 work, which includes Ethernet upgrade. And the second item pre-authorizes some work for the Ethernet. Agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Concur?
On the next page, page 19 in the Department of Transportation, the first item here is the Howard Street Tunnel project. The first house modified it to replace the GO bond funds with general funds.
Concur with the House.
Okay.
Second.
All right.
The second item here Item 2 is for the WMATA thing, and this approves, DLS recommended approving 125 million for this, and the agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Right, concur with the House.
Moving now to page 20, the Department of Natural Resources. First recommendation there is to concur with the governor's authorization for the Community Parks and Playgrounds Program. The agency concurred, the first house adopted.
Concur with the House.
All right. Recommendation number 2 concerns the Natural Resources Development Fund. Just a little bit of background here. The governor originally had swapped general obligation bonds for transfer tax special funds. The governor then reversed that decision in the kind of a BRFA provision that he brought in a supplemental budget, or kind of BRFA provision he brought in. Therefore, there's now opportunity to use special funds, transfer tax special funds for GO bonds. So for a couple of recommendations here related to the transfer tax, you guys are now going to be able to reduce the use of general obligation bonds for that purpose. So for Natural Resources Development Fund, DLS is recommended concurring initially, but you guys, or the first house, excuse me, had reduced the authorization to $751,000 for the program, with the understanding that there's transfer tax special funds available for that purpose.
Or with the House.
Sure.
On page 22, the program Open Space State, DLS had recommended reducing $34 million for that program. The agency disagreed, noting that they were proactively looking at acquisition projects. Then the governor brought in supplemental BRFA provision to then strip out the requirement for the swap. Therefore, the general obligation bonds are no longer needed. Therefore, the first house reduced by $34 million, the authorization for program Open Space State.
Concur with the House.
Recommendation number 4 on page 23 for the Rural Legacy Program is a $17 million reduction for the exact same purpose. This is an action that was taken by the first house.
Concur with the House.
Recommendation, then there's an additional first house action at the bottom of page 23, which will provide for $85 million for local parks and playgrounds infrastructure to provide funding for all 23 counties and Baltimore City, funding for shovel-ready projects that could then go forward immediately. And
go ahead. Concur with the House.
All right, moving now to page 26. Recommendation number 5 concerns the Resiliency Through Restoration Initiative Program. DLS recommends concurring with the governor's authorization. The first house, agency concurred, the first house adopted.
Okay. Back on 25, Andrew, tomorrow we're gonna see a lot of changes. This is the House's program, and they've decided to change the way they're gonna do that. So just everybody, just an FYI. This is how the House decided to spend their side of the money. So you're going to see some pages for this. Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Thank you, sir. So back on page 26, recommendation number 5, the Resiliency Through Restoration Initiative Program. We talked about recommendation number 6, Oyster Restoration Program. The DLS recommended concurring with the governor's authorization. The agency response was to concur, and the first house adopted.
Okay, concur.
And recommendation number 7 concerns the Natural Resources Development Fund pre-authorization of funding for fiscal 23 to finish the projects. Agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Okay, concur.
On page 27 starts the Department of Agriculture. First recommendation there is to concur with the authorization for the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Program. The first house rejected this action for the same reason that transfer tax funding is available. Therefore, they reduced the $31 million authorization.
Concur.
And on the bottom of the page 27, recommendation number 2 concerns the Maryland Agricultural Cost Share Program. DLS recommended concurring with the authorization. The agency concurred, the first house adopted.
Concur.
The Department of Health's capital program is on page 28. The first 2 items are annual grant programs. DLS concurred, MDH concurred, and the first house adopted.
Concur.
Items 3, 4, and 5 all pertain to the Clifton T. Perkins Hospital Center. We have the current funding in fiscal 22, as well as 2 amendments to prior authorizations. Item 4 and 5 here as well. DLS concurred, the agency concurred, and the first house adopted.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't know what this project is. Could you just get a quick word on it?
Yeah, so for Clifton T. Perkins, they've been renovating the north wing of the hospital. And what they're doing is they're taking, right now that's the only medium security aspect of the hospital, and they're actually upgrading it to a maximum security site as well. And so this project is still sort of in the planning phases, but it's increasing the Sally port, the security level of the Sally port, and actually reducing the beds by, I think, 14.
You want us to hold it, or you're okay with it?
No. It's in my district. I just wanted to understand what was going on.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Chairman, I was going to move on concurring on all three items.
Okay. Sounds good.
For the Department of Public Safety and Correctional Services on page 29, the first two items refer to the Jessup Regional Electrical Infrastructure Upgrade, a authorization and a pre-authorization. The first house adopted, DLS recommended concurring.
Okay, concur.
And the third recommendation concerns the ECI high temperature project. This is $11.8 million. The DLS recommended to concur, and the first house occurred.
Okay, very good.
On page 30, this is for the Maryland State Department of Education. The first item is the Aging Schools Program. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's allowance. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Sure.
The second item is for non-public school security improvements. DLS recommended annual language and a cut of $1.5 million. The agency concurred in part. Did not concur with the move of the program to the Maryland Center for School Safety. First house adopted.
Okay,
Concur with the house.
Item number 3 is the public school construction program. This is the $185 million in bonds. We recommended concurring, agency concur, and the house adopted. Then there's an additional first house action for $35 million. First house adopted.
Okay, concur.
Item number 4 on page 32 is for the Public School Safety Grant Program. DLS recommended moving this program to the Maryland Center for School Safety and cutting the authorization by $5 million. The agency concurred in part. They did not agree with the movement of the program. First house modified, and the first house action moves deauthorizes the program, but with the idea that funds will be restored in the by the governor, and the first house adopted.
Sure.
On top of page 33, this is the Senator James E. Ed DeGrange Non-Public Aging Schools Program. This program goes on to page 35, and it restores language from fiscal 21 and adds language in regard to participation. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Sure.
Item number 6 on page 35 is the Supplemental Capital Grant Program. DLS recommended concurring with the $40,000 for the authorization, and the agency concurred. The first house adopted. There's also a first additional house action, which the house adopted, and then there's an additional action if you go on to pages 37 and 38. This is in the second house. This is the color page that adds an additional $20 million and alters the distribution of grants.
I would adopt the color page.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you.
Top of page 39. This is an additional first house action to restore funding for the Healthy Schools Facility Fund in accordance with Chapter 20 of 2020, the Build to Learn Act for $30 billion. The House adopted.
Okay, concur.
Then on the bottom of page 39, this is item 7. This is approval of $65 million in bond premiums. DLS recommended concur, and the first house adopted.
Okay, concur.
Page number 40 is the Maryland State Library Agency. The recommendation is to approve funding for the Public Library Capital Grant Program. The House adopted.
Okay, concur.
On page 41 for University of Maryland, Baltimore campus, the first is to approve $11.3 million for electrical substation. The House deleted this funding and added intent language that the governor would restore the funds.
Okay, concur.
The next action, the House added $2.5 million for the School of Social Work renovations.
Okay, concur.
On page 42, the next recommendation is to approve a pre-authorization for the electrical substation. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Okay, concur.
The House added the next two items on this page and the next page, adding two pre-authorizations in 23 and 24 for the School of Social Work.
Okay, concur.
On page 44 for University of Maryland College Park, the first recommendation is to approve $5 million for campus-wide systems and infrastructure. That agency concurred and the House adopted. The second recommendation was to
Well,
approve.
hold on one second. I'm gonna have to recuse myself from this one. So just the College Park page, I guess. Craig, if you could take a vote on.
Sure.
We'll go through.
Sure.
Go ahead.
The second item was to approve $45.2 million for the chemistry building wing 1 replacement. The House deleted these funds and added intent language that the governor would restore the funds.
Move to concur with the House. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone? Good. Next.
Okay, on this page and the next, the House added $2.5 million for the School of Public Policy.
Move to concur with the House. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Great. Next.
Okay, on page 45, the House added $4 million for the interdisciplinary engineering building.
Move to concur with the House. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next.
Okay, on page 46 is a recommendation to approve the pre-authorization for the chemistry building wing 1 replacement. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Move to concur with the House. Second. All
The
those in
House-
favor say aye. Okay. Next.
Okay, the House added a 23 pre-authorization for the engineering building.
Move to concur. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next.
The next is a pre-authorization, a 24 pre-authorization for the chemistry building, and the agency concurred and the House adopted.
Move to concur with House. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next.
On page 47, the House added pre-authorizations in 24 and 25 for the engineering building.
Move to concur with the House.
Aye.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? None? Okay, next.
On page 48, I have a color page that would add $10 million for the quantum and advanced computing infrastructure.
Move to adopt. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None? Okay, next.
And I have another color page that Ann will bring up on the screen for you. And this would add $375,000 for signage and a messaging board in the Cole Field House.
Is there a motion to adopt?
Adopt.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? None? Okay, next.
And back.
49 for Bowie State University. Item number 1 is for the Communication Arts and Humanities Building, 3.6 million. DLS recommended concurring. The first House adopted, and items 2, 3, and 4 were pre-authorizations for the same project, which DLS recommended approving, and the agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
On page 50 for Towson University, the first was to approve $50.7 million for the College of Health Professions. The House deleted this funding and added intent language. The governor would restore these funds.
Concur.
The next two items are pre-authorization 23 and 24 for the Health Professions Building.
Concur.
Second.
On page 51 for University of Maryland Eastern Shore, the first recommendation was approved $18.7 million for the School of Pharmacy. Again, the House deleted these funds and added intent language.
Concur.
Concur.
Page 52 for Frostburg State University. DLS recommended approving the $46.6 million for the Education and Health Sciences Center. The agency concurred. The first House rejected this recommendation with the stipulation that the governor would restore these funds.
Concur.
On the next page, page 53, there is a Senate action that would add $3 million for the Challenger Center.
Move to adopt.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
On page 54 for Coppin State University, the DLS recommended action was to approve the $32.9 million for the Percy Julian Science Center. The agency concurred, the House rejected this action and stipulated that this funding be funded by the governor through general funds.
Concur with the House.
There's on the next page, page 55, an additional Senate action that would add funds for Coppin State University to in fiscal 2022 for $3 million for a new dormitory.
Move to adopt.
We might want to add student union also. I believe the request was for a dormitory and or student union. Okay, we okay with that? All right. Let's move to adopt with that language. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
There's a corresponding pre-authorization just further down the page for fiscal 23 for the same project.
Okay.
I would move to adopt with the modified language.
Okay, yeah, please. Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
Aye.
Okay, on page 56 for the University of Maryland, Baltimore County, the first was to approve $6.9 million for utility upgrades and site improvements. The House adopted.
Concur?
Concur.
Okay, the next, the House added $7 million for the renovation of Sherman Hall, and at the bottom of the page in the next, we added 2 corresponding authorizations for this project.
Move to concur on both.
All right. Concur?
For University System of Maryland office on page 58, the first item was $4.8 million for the third academic building at USMSM. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Adopt. House.
Item number 2 was for the Capital Facilities Renewal Program. This is $25 million in revenue bonds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Next on page 59 is Baltimore City Community College. Recommendation number 1 is to adopt committee narrative requesting a report on the redevelopment of the downtown Bard building site. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Okay. Concur?
Recommendation number 2 is for the college's deferred maintenance program. The original recommendation was to approve 1.25 million. However, the House modified and added an additional 2.75 million to the program for a total authorization amount of 4 million.
Concur?
Recommendation number 3 was to approve a deauthorization for the main building renovation. The agency disagreed and the first House rejected and adopted the additional action to strike that deauthorization.
With the House.
Concur? The House?
St. Mary's College of Maryland on page 62. The first item was for the academic building and auditorium. DLS recommended approving the $20 million. However, the House eliminated this funding with the stipulation that the governor would fund it through a supplemental budget.
With the House.
Item number 2 is for campus infrastructure improvements. DLS recommended approving the 1.5 million in GEO bonds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
Item number 3 is to extend a termination date for a project. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Okay, concur?
Page number 63 is the Maryland School for the Deaf. Recommendation number 1 is to approve funding for the emergency notification system project. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
Recommendation number 2 is the Vets building project, authorizing funding for construction. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
Recommendation number 3 is a deauthorization for a project. The House adopted.
Sure.
And recommendation number 4 is a pre-authorization for the remaining construction funding for the Veddets building project. The House adopted.
Concur.
Moving on to the Maryland Higher Education Commission on page 64. Recommendation number 1 is for the GEO bond funding portion of the Community College Construction Grant Program. The original recommendation was to concur. The House rejected and eliminated the GEO bond funding and adopted intent that the governor refill with general funds. Item number 2 is the Community College Facilities Renewal Grant Program. The recommendation was to approve the $3.794 million for this program. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
Item number 3 is the first of 2 pre-authorizations for the Community College Construction Grant Program. The recommendation was to concur. The first House adopted. However, there is a color page modification on page number 68 for this item. This adds an additional $6.5 million in pre-authorization for the Dr. Charlene Mickens Dukes Student Center at Prince George's Community College.
I'd move to reject the House action and adopt color page number. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Okay. Go ahead and adopt color page 68.
Your second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You said color page 68. It's 67, isn't it? Did I miss something?
Adopt color page on 68.
Oh, okay. There's
It's on
another.
page. Yeah, it's on picture. There's 2 of them. The one
Okay,
referring to
sorry.
this item's on page 68.
Yes, can you let our colleague in, Senator McRae? He's in the waiting room. I don't know where he went, but we need him back.
Okay, don't add to it.
Sorry. There he is.
Welcome back.
What did you miss? How, do you want to, okay, you're okay?
I'm good.
Okay, let's keep going. Sorry, I didn't want you to miss anything. All right. I apologize. So we voted on color page 68, so we're on page 66. Okay,
So we'll be back on page 65, item number 4.
all right, sorry.
This is the second pre-authorization. This is just the pre-authorization for 24 for the community college program.
I'll concur. Okay.
Concur. Yeah, this was a concur. Item number 5 on page 65 is the 20 million in bond premium portion of the construction grant program. The first House adopted the language on page 66, which added the 1.5 million for Montgomery College for the Isaiah and Catherine Leggett Math and Science Building. This language was further modified by the color page on page 67 for your consideration, which adds an additional 1.5 million for the Dr. Charlene Mickens Dukes Student Center project at Prince George's Community College.
I modify the House and adopt color page 67.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay.
69 from Morgan State University. Item number 1 is for the campus expansion phase 1 Lake Clifton High School demolition. DLS recommended approving the $932,000 GO bonds. The agency concurred and the first House adopted.
I'd like to move to make it an even 5 million. So I guess it'd be adding what, 4,068,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Senator McRae?
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
Item number 2 is for the deferred maintenance and site improvements program. DLS recommended approving the 10 million in GO bonds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 3 is for the new Health and Human Services Building Phase 2. DLS recommended approving the 30.1 million in GO bonds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 4 is for the new Science Center Phase 1. DLS recommended approving the $784,000 in GO bonds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 5 is a deauthorization of just under $110,000 for a project that has been completed. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Items number 6 and 7 on page 70 are pre-authorizations for the same project for the new Health and Human Services building. DLS recommended approving both of these items. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Right, on page 71 for the University of Maryland Medical System, the budget as introduced had $12 million in GO bonds for the Comprehensive Cancer and Organ Transplant Treatment Center. The the agency concurred. The House rejected that and instead deleted the funds with the intent that the governor bring it back in general funds.
Concur with the House.
And then the second item on page 71 is for the R. Adams Cowley Shock Trauma Center, and that's for $2.5 million. The House adopted that.
Concur.
On page 72, this begins the Department of Housing and Community Development. In item 1, DLS recommended language requesting information on the use of non-budgeted funds. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
At the bottom of that page, there's a color page item that would adopt narrative requesting that DHCD consider giving greater priority to financing scattered site projects.
Move to adopt color page.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
On page 73, there's a color page that would adopt narrative requesting a report on how DHCD solicits community input during the application process for several of its programs.
Move to adopt color page.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
At the bottom of page 73, DLS recommended approving the $6 million general obligation bond authorization for the Baltimore Regional Neighborhood Initiative. But on the following page, you can see the House restricted some of this funding for the Pennsylvania Avenue Black Arts and Entertainment District. And there is a color page that would add a further restriction of funds for a Northeast Housing Initiative project.
Okay.
I'd move to adopt the color page, which obviously modifies the House language.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
At the bottom of page 75, item 3 is an approval of $6 million for the Community Legacy Program. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
On page 76, DLS recommended approving $3 million for the National Capital Strategic Economic Development Program. The agency concurred, and the House added language restricting a portion of these funds for a project in Riverdale Park.
Okay. Okay.
I have a question.
I think there was a Hyattsville should have been in here. Did you get that changed, Matthew? I'm sorry, go ahead, Senator Ecker. Why don't you ask your question while I clear this up?
We're designating a number of these projects. Are there funds remaining for other miscellaneous grants, or do these just kind of target?
So the Bernie Fund goes to Baltimore City, Baltimore County, Howard, and I think a little bit of Anne Arundel. And the Ned Fund, which is this one, goes to Montgomery and Prince George's. So
Okay.
there are certain stipulations. I know for the Ned Fund, it has to be a sustainable community. So all that's happening is Montgomery or Prince George's or Baltimore, whomever the account is tied into, is just designating some of these projects to be restricted, the funds be restricted for these projects. So it's within their purview of money, they're just designating it.
Right, and they make recommendations to us for these, so they
Right.
know
Yeah,
what their priorities are and what's left, what they're thinking about in the future.
correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so for this one, it should be, you should add Hyattsville and Riverdale Park. So on the line that says, it should say Hyattsville and Riverdale Park, okay? So if we could just vote on that, that would be good. Can we get a motion to do that?
Move to include Hyattsville as well, modify the language.
Okay, is there a second? All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, sorry about that.
All right, on page 77, DLS recommended approving funding for the Neighborhood Business Development Program. The agency concurred and the House adopted. There is a color page related to this item that would adopt narrative requesting a report on loan activity and processes in this program.
Move to adopt the color page.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
On the top of page 78 for item 6, DLS recommended approving funding for the SEED program. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
All right. For item 7, DLS recommended approving funding for the Strategic Demolition Fund. And the House added $1 million in restricted funding for projects in Baltimore City and Allegheny County. And there's an additional color page for this item that Anne will share on the screen.
Sorry about that. Let me just bring up the correct item. Apologies for the delay. So for the Strategic Demolition Fund, Emily, can you see that?
Yes. So this color page would further increase the funding by a little over $6 million. And it further restricts the funds for Baltimore City projects and also specifies the portion of the authorization to be used for Project Core versus the statewide program. And Project Core is the part of this funding that is for Baltimore City.
I would move to adopt the color page, which modifies the House action.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Well,
Aye.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
went a little fast there. Allegheny High School still in here?
Yes.
Yes.
There it is up there. I see it. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
right there.
I see it.
Do you see it? It's not too fast? We're good? All
Came
right.
like
Okay.
We'll record you, Senator Edwards, as seconding this motion.
that. That's all right. I just voted for it.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, on page 79 in item 8, recommended approving funding for home ownership programs. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Okay, concur.
The bottom of that page, DLS recommended approving funds for the Local Government Infrastructure Fund, and the agency concurred. On page 80, you can see the House deleted this funding with the intent that the governor restore the funding of available federal funds.
Okay, concur.
Ask the question.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
We
sir.
need
What
that
is the
money.
What is the Local Government Infrastructure Fund?
Broadband.
I mean,
Isn't it broadband?
I don't know.
Yes,
It is.
Say
It is.
broadband.
It's broadband, so we,
Okay, well, that's fine. That's what it ought to go for, but it doesn't say that here. And, that's pretty broad, infrastructure fund, local government, pretty broad. That's why I asked the question.
right.
Okay.
You know, I'm paying attention, Mr. Chairman.
I was going to say, it's computers and stuff. That's what it is. Okay. All right.
Connection.
All right, we're okay with that one?
Yeah.
All right. Concur?
Concur.
item 10 on page 80, DLS recommended approving the funding for the Partnership Rental Housing Program, and the House increased funding for the program and restricted funds for the Perkins Somerset Old Town redevelopment project.
Okay. Concur.
On pages 81 and 82, this is a similar item where DLS recommended approving funds for rental housing programs, and the House increased funding and restricted funds for the Perkins Somerset Old Town project.
Okay. Sure.
Items 12 and 13 on page 82, DLS recommended approving funds for the Shelter and Transitional Housing Facilities Grant Program and special loan programs. The agency concurred with both of these and the House adopted both.
Okay, concur.
On page 83 is the Department of the Environment. First recommendation there was to concur with the governor's authorization for the comprehensive flood management program. The agency concurred. However, the first House modified this program to provide for $9 million for 3 particular projects. And then if you move on to page 84, the bottom, you see a color page item for the Senate, which would increase the amount that the House had provided by another $2.8 million, providing for 2 additional projects. It would correct the project name, and then would also add language giving more flexibility to the agency, but also requiring a reporting requirement if they take advantage of that flexibility.
Move to adopt the color page.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
So the color page is, as is, would be a comprehensive total amount of $17,754,000.
Okay.
So that would be,
Number nine needs to be Beaver Creek and not Bladensburg flooding.
very good. We can change that. That's Beaver Creek mitigation, is that correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then the proposal is to have a total of at $17,754,000, or is there any, that's the final amount?
Well, we put in, I think we brought up Howard County to 5, right? That's in the.
That would require an additional $3 million over what you're seeing here.
Okay, all right. Well, then I think Matthew, we're doing that tomorrow, right? Unless you want to do it right here. I don't care.
I think if you want to do it right here, just do it right here.
Okay. So yeah, we wanted to add, this is a H4, right? Is that what it's called? Okay. So yeah, I think Ellicott City, Howard County, we wanted to do it another 3 here.
Okay, so Ellicott City H4 dry flood mitigation plan would take it up to $5 million.
Yeah, it's at 2, it should go to 5, right?
Thank you very much.
Okay. So we make a motion.
Yeah. Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Bottom of page
Voice
86.
of Howard has been heard.
Bottom of page 86, recommendation number 2 concerns the Maryland Drinking Water Revolving Loan Fund. DLS recommended concurring with the governor's authorization. The agency concurred, the first house adopted.
Concur.
On page 87, DLS had recommended concurring with the authorizations for 3, 4, 5, and 6 there. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Concur.
Yep.
Moving to page 88, recommendation number 7 is to concur with the deauthorization of funding. The agency concurred and the first house adopted.
Concur.
Page 89, Maryland Environmental Service. First recommendation there was for the Infrastructure Improvement Fund to concur with the governor's authorization. Agency concurred. The first house rejected this action because of the availability of transfer tax special funds as discussed previously. So they were able to reduce that authorization by $8,871,000.
Okay, concur.
Bottom of page 89, recommendation number 2 concerns the Maryland Environmental Services Infrastructure Improvement Fund fiscal 23 funding. This is a pre-authorization. The agency concurred with DLS recommendation and first house adopted.
Concur.
And on page 90, recommendation number 3 concerns a pre-authorization for fiscal 2024 for the Infrastructure Improvement Fund. The agency concurred with DLS's recommendation to approve and the first house adopted.
Concur.
On page 91, we have the Department of Juvenile Services. Item number 1 provides $2.5 million of GO bond funds to the Baltimore City Juvenile Justice Center Education Expansion Project. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 2 provides $23.4 million for the new female detention center. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 3 is a pre-authorization for $7 million for the Baltimore City Juvenile Justice Center project. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Concur.
Item number 4 on the bottom of page 91 and item number 5 on the top of page 92 are pre-authorizations for the new female detention center. The agency concurred with both and the House adopted both.
Concur.
On page 93 is the Department of State Police. Item number 1 provides $11.4 million to the New Berlin Barrack and Garage. The agency concurred. The House modified this to delete the GO bond funding with the intent that the governor provide in equal amount of funding in general funds through a supplemental budget.
With House.
Item number 2 provides $177,000 to the new tactical operations building. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
Item number 3 modifies and extends the authorization of funding for a new flight training facility at Martin State Airport. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
And item number 4 is a pre-authorization for the Berlin Barrack, $9.8 million. The agency concurred and the House adopted.
Sure.
The Maryland Hospital Association's grant program is on page 95 and 96. On page 95, we have items for Anne Arundel Medical Center, Carroll Hospital, Drs Community, Holy Cross, and Kennedy Krieger, all of which are projects for fiscal 22, all of which DLS concurred with and the first House adopted.
I'd like to separate Dr. Hospital.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, Greg, go ahead.
No, it's okay. It's okay. If it's okay with you, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to separate out Drs Community Hospital for the purposes of a member being able to take the rule.
Okay.
Is there any other items that we need to separate? I don't see any. So let's move adoption of concurring with the House on all the items listed on this page, except for Drs Hospital. So we're voting on everything except Drs Hospital right now. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're now going to take a vote on Drs Community Hospital. It was moved to concur with the House. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, back to you.
Page 96 has the remainder of the Maryland Hospital Association grant programs. We have 3 projects and an amendment to prior authorization, and on item 9, with all of these as well, DLS concurred with, the Hospital Association occurred and the House adopted.
Okay, so
Mr. Chair.
let's vote on 6, 8, and 9 right now and hold number 7. All in favor of 6, 8, and 9, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, now for number 7, we will have a separate vote. One of our members is taking the rule on this one. Is there a motion for number 7?
Move to
Is there a
adopt.
second?
Concur with the House.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Take the rule.
Rule. Okay,
On page 97, for local jails and detention centers, there's 2 projects, one in Frederick County and one in St. Mary's County. DLS recommended concurring and the first House adopted.
concur.
Okay.
On page 98 is the first of 3 MICUA projects. The first is DLS recommended concurring with a $3.3 million authorization for the Eisenhower Library at Johns Hopkins. The House added $1.7 million to make it a total of $5 million for that project.
Concur with the House.
On page 99, the second project for MICUA is at Mount St. Mary's University. DLS recommended concurring with a $1.4 million authorization. The House added $600,000 to make it a $2 million authorization.
Concur.
And then on page 100 for St. John's College, DLS recommended approving a $3.3 million authorization. The House added $1.7 million to make it a $5 million authorization.
Chairman, I'd move to concur with the House when it comes to adding the funds, but I would just modify to remove the matching requirement.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right, so then on page 101, so this begins the miscellaneous grant program. The first few I'll go through are the ones that were already in the budget as introduced by the governor. So the first project is the African American Museum and Cultural Center. The budget had that for $500,000. DLS recommended deleting these funds and the first House rejected that.
Okay, concur with the House.
Item 2 on page 101 would fund the Bainbridge Naval Training Center site redevelopment at $500,000. The House funded it at that level.
I would move to modify to make it 1.5 million.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. So then items 6 funds Bladensburg World War I Memorial for $320,000, Brewer Hill Cemetery for $100,000, the Carroll County Public Safety Training Center for $1 million, and the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum capital improvements for $140,000. And the House adopted all of those at the funding levels that were in the budget as introduced.
Okay, concur.
Item 10 on page 102 is the City of Annapolis Stanton Community Center renovation. The budget had that for $400,000 in GO, and the House, the House added $100,000 to that to authorize $500,000.
Okay, concur.
Items 11 and 12. The first one is City of Brunswick New Emergency Operations Center. The budget has $500,000, and then the Community Arts LLC Frederick Sports Mural has $50,000 in the budget. The House approved both of those projects.
Concur with the House.
All right. Item 13 is the Cumberland Economic Development Corporation Baltimore Street Access Project. The budget had $500,000 for that, and the House adopted this project at that level.
Senator Edwards, you want to make a motion?
I'd like to move, we add 250,000 to that total.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
So then item 14 is the Days End Farm Horse Rescue Facility acquisition. That's funded at $100,000. Item 15 is the Delmarva Community Services Chesapeake Grove Intergenerational Center. Item 16 is the Frederick County Animal Control Edition. Item 17 is the Frederick County New Green Valley Fire Station Water and Sewer Line Extension. And then item 18 is the Garrett College Community Education and Performing Arts Center. The House approved all of those projects at the funding level as introduced in the budget.
Okay, but it says skip here.
So we're going to concur with the House. I would move to concur with House items 14 through 18.
Correct.
Oh, good.
And then we're going to get
Okay.
a 19 here.
Got it.
That brings you all to item 19 on page 104. This is the Garrett County High School's athletic facilities renovations. The DLS recommendation was to reduce this grant. That was $500,000. However, the House rejected the DLS recommendation and actually added $500,000 to bring the total to $1 million.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move, we add another $100,000 to that.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So then item 20 is the Hagerstown Revitalization Project. Item 21 is the Helping Up Mission Women's and Children's Center. Item 22 is the Hippodrome Foundation, or I'm sorry, excuse me, I'll stop at item 21. And the House approved both of those items for Hagerstown Revitalization and the Helping Up Mission Project.
We'll concur with 20 and 21.
So then item 22 is for the Hippodrome Foundation. The budget as introduced had $500,000. The House added $2.5 million to a $3 million authorization.
Okay.
Move to adopt the color page.
Second? Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sorry, can I clarify that action? So there's the fiscal 22 authorization. So the House had authorized a $2.5 million addition to a total of $3 million. So that's the fiscal 22 authorization. You'd first like to make a motion on.
I thought we already concurred with that. Yep.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, I must have missed it. I
That's okay.
apologize.
No problem. You got to keep us straight. All right. Sounds good.
Okay, so
We're good. All right.
it sounded like a concur with the fiscal 22 authorization. And then, yes, there's a color page item on the bottom of page 106 that would approve a pre-authorization for $3 million for the same project for Hippodrome Foundation. And so if you already moved to adopt that color page, then we can.
Okay, let's do it again. We'll get a
Move to
motion.
adopt color
Is
page.
there a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Then that brings you to page 107. Item 23 is the Historic Annapolis Restoration is $1 million. Item 24 is the Keys Development Keys Community Healing Center for $1 million. Item 25 is the Level 82 Fund Hilton Recreation Center renovation. Item 26 is the Lexington Market for $2 million. And then item 27 is the Living Classrooms Opportunity Hub project funded at $500,000. The House approved all of those projects at the levels I just mentioned.
Okay.
Move to concur with the House from, with items 23 through 27.
Okay.
So item 28 at the top of page 108, this is the Maryland Center for History and Culture Building Renovations Project. The budget as introduced had $500,000 for this project. The House added another $1.5 million in GO for a total of $2 million.
Okay. Concur. All right.
Okay. So then item 29 is for the Maryland State Fair renovations. The budget as introduced had $500,000. The DLS recommendation was to reduce that by $250,000 because that project had about 95% state support. So that was the reasoning behind the DLS recommendation, was to bring in a more local contributions to that. The first House rejected the DLS recommendation and fully funded that at $500,000.
Sure.
Okay. So then item 30 on the top of page 109, this is for the Maryland Veterans Memorial Museum. The budget as introduced had $150,000 and the House approved that.
Sure.
On item 31, this is the Maryland Zoo and Baltimore infrastructure improvements. The budget had $4.75 million, or excuse me, the capital budget as introduced had $4.75 million budgeted for this project. The House added $1 million to a total of $5.75 million for this grant.
Okay. Move to concur.
Item 32 at the bottom of page 109 is the MedStar Franklin Square Hospital new surgical tower. The budget, the capital budget as introduced had $1.5 million for this grant, and the House approved that.
Okay, now tomorrow we're going to do some House actions, but they're going to add another $500,000, so we might as well do it here if that's okay.
Okay,
Let's move to increase this to 500,000, making it 2 million. Is there a second?
MedStar, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Great, it's noted. And then item 33 at the top of page 110 is the Merriweather Post Pavilion renovation project. The budget as introduced had that grant at $500,000. The the House had added $2.5 million to that project for a total grant of $3 million.
I would move to make it 4 million.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So then at the bottom of page 110, there's the National Aquarium in Baltimore funded at $2 million. The National Cryptologic Museum Foundation funded at $100,000. And then the Nexus Woodburn Family Healing Capital Improvements Project funded at $500,000. The House approved all of those grants at the amounts just mentioned.
Move to concur with that.
And then that takes you to item 37 on page 111. This is the North Bay Education Capital Improvements Project. The budget as introduced has that at $500,000 in GO.
I'd like to move that to be 750,000. So I guess we'd add 250.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good.
And then item 38 at the bottom of page 111 is the Nourish Now new warehouse project. The budget had it at 600,000. DLS recommended reducing this by 90,000 due to, I think, the grantee had reporting having that amount in private donations. And then the House rejected the DLS recommendation and fully funded the project at 600,000.
Okay, concur.
I'm sorry, which one was that?
That was item 38 at the bottom of 111. It's called the Nourish Now new warehouse
Oh,
project.
I'm sorry. I turned the page and missed it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, so it sounded like that was a concur.
That was a concur.
Yeah.
Exactly what it was.
Sorry.
So then on The top of page 112, item 39 funds the Peel Center. This project, the budget is introduced, had $150,000 as the grant for this. The House added $250,000 to a total grant of $400,000.
Okay. To concur.
Concur.
And then item 40 is the Pearlstone Center Campus Renovation and Expansion Project. The budget had this in at $500,000 for the grant, and the House approved that grant amount.
Okay. Is there a motion?
For House?
What is I'm sorry, what's the Pearlstone Center?
I would have to, let's see.
All right, we can get back to me on that. I'm just,
Yeah, I can send exact information about that project.
got it.
Okay.
Item 41 at the bottom of page 112, this is the Pikesville Armory Foundation, Pikesville Armory renovation. This was introduced in the budget as a $1 million grant, and the first House approved that grant amount.
I would like to modify and 1.5 million.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So then there is a color page item related to that same project for the Pikesville Armory Foundation. The color page item at the top of page 113 would approve of fiscal 23 pre-authorization of $2.5 million for that project.
Move to adopt the color page.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 42 is for the Sinai Hospital of Baltimore, Inc. The budget has that at $1 million, has a $1 million grant for that. The DLS recommendation was to reduce the funding for that project due to, I believe, the timing of the construction, and then the first House rejected the DLS recommendation, fully funding that project.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, funding the $1 million grant.
All right, we'll concur.
Yep.
At the bottom of page 43, and then also, item 43 going on to page 114. This is the St. Michael's Community Center renovation project. The first House approved this $500,000 grant.
Concur.
Thank you. Yes.
You're welcome.
And then item 44 on page 114, this project is for the Velocity Companies LLC, Hampton Park Sustainable Parking Infrastructure. The grant for this was introduced as $500,000. The DLS recommendation was to reduce this funding. However, the first House rejected that and funded the $500,000 grant.
Okay, concur.
Yep.
Okay. Item 45 is the YMCA of Central Maryland. The grant as introduced is $565,000. The first House added $435,000 to that project for a total authorization of $1 million.
Okay, so this was Senator Smith's LBI.
I don't think so, Mr. Chairman. I think this is,
I'm sorry, this is not Montgomery County. Right, okay, no problem, sorry. I just want to make sure he gets covered. Okay.
There will be, I think, 4 other YMCA projects that we'll go over. So I will let you know when it's the metropolitan.
Got it, there's a lot of them, sorry.
Yep.
So I'm sorry, so the action there was to concur with the YMCA Central Maryland at $1 million.
Yeah.
I messed it up, sorry.
Okay, item 46 is a grant for the town of Emmitsburg Water Treatment Plant Water Clarifier. The budget as introduced had that grant as $1 million. The DLS recommendation was to reduce that by $200,000, as that was the amount I believe applied for through a different capital program. The first House rejected that action and funded the grant at $1 million.
Okay, concur with the House.
Yep.
And then items 47 is the vehicles for.
Mr. Chairman.
Mm-hmm.
You had wanted to flag Chairman Smith's, and that's on 50 that we would have just concurred with the House on. I didn't know if you wanted me to flag for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think we're okay. I think he has a separate LBI now that I
Okay.
looked.
Thank you, sir.
So I think we're good.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, so I can present items 47 through 49 and then stop at item 50 and then we can, if you'd like. So here, so item 47 is the Vehicles for Change Capital Equipment Eastern Shore Expansion Program. The grant is for $200,000 and the House approved that grant. So we can do it by item if you'd like.
Okay.
So I'll go ahead and, okay, so then item 48 is the YMCA of Frederick County, South County Family YMCA. That House approved that at House approved the grant of $565,000. And then item 49 is the YMCA of Hagerstown. That grant was for $565,000 and the House also approved that. So would you like to make an action on items 47, 48, and 49?
That
Concur
sounds
with the
good.
House.
Concur.
Okay,
So then item 50 is the YMCA of Metropolitan Washington facility upgrades. The grant as introduced was $565,000. The House approved that funding level.
So I'm sorry, everybody. 50 is a Silver Spring, right? Isn't that the Montgomery?
Yes.
That, yeah, it funds a couple different projects, but they are all in Montgomery County, I believe.
Okay, is this his LBI that we're bringing in? It's additional to the LBI. This is 435. Isn't it?
This is a project that was it was in the capital budget as introduced. So it's separate from the LBIs. Matt, if you wanted to weigh in on.
I just want to make sure he gets covered because there was some confusion. I thought the governor brought in some money that covered his, but it didn't. So we got that all straightened out. So this will straighten that all out, right?
This would increase it to $1 million from the governor's, I think, 565.
Okay. Very good. So get a motion
Concur.
to add the 435. Okay.
So moved.
Yep.
second,
All in favor?
aye,
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Okay, so then item 51 in the middle of page 116 is the YMCA of the Chesapeake Queen Anne's County Family YMCA and Senior Center. The budget had, as introduced, had a grant for $565,000 for this project, and the House approved that grant level.
now they'll take some more.
Okay. So concur.
Concur,
All right, so that ends the miscellaneous projects that were in the budget as introduced. So the following projects are all additional miscellaneous grants that the House added to the budget. So the first group that I'll list is the Prince George's County Amphitheater at Central Park, the Baltimore Museum of Art, the Greenway Avenue Stadium, the Bay Sox Stadium.
I'd move to concur with everything through the Bay Sox Stadium. So through.
second,
DC.
On page 119 at the top of there's a color page for the same Bay Sox Stadium project. This action for your consideration would add a pre-authorization of $500,000.
I'd like to move to adopt the color page, if that's okay with you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
second,
The next group of projects, the House added funds for the League for People with Disabilities Facility Upgrade Project, the Andre DeShield Center for the Arts, the Burtonsville Commuter Parking Project, and the Friends House Retirement Community.
I'd like to concur with the House through the Friends House Retirement Community.
So then that brings you to page 122, item, I'm sorry, the code is ZAOOBH, but that's the Our House Youth Home Project. The House added $100,000 for that project.
I'd move to reject the House and delete the funding as it's not needed right now.
second,
Is there a second? All right. All in
Second.
favor?
aye,
Okay.
Okay, and then starting at the bottom of page 122 and then moving on, I'll read through the next group of projects. So the first is the downtown Hyattsville parking garage, then the Riverdale Park Hiker Biker Trail lighting project, the Lake Arbor Park, the White Flint Transit Station rebranding, the City of Laurel Multi-Service Center, And Rash Field, there's also a pre-authorization of $500,000 for Rash Field, and then a grant for the Maryland Council for Special Equestrians. So those are all projects that the House added funds for.
Okay, so let me go back to Hyattsville parking garage. The House wants to add another 500,000, so we can do that here right now. So we won't have another color page tomorrow. Okay, can we do that? Make a motion to go from 2 to 2.5?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I have a little punch list, so I'm trying to incorporate it as we go along. So make a
Mr. Chairman,
simple
Mr.
tomorrow.
Chairman,
Yes.
so do you mind if I make a motion that we concur with the House through the equestrian with the modified language for Hyattsville?
That sounds perfect. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that covers the other projects up through, the Maryland Council for Special Equestrians. So then at the bottom of page 127, the House added funds for the USS Constellation project.
I would move to add funds to make it a total of 2.5 million.
Is there a
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
The president told us the other day that they made whiskey in there at one point to try to make money.
In that case, do you think we're giving them enough?
It got shut down, so because it was sinking. It's sinking. All
Are
right,
we
I'm
gonna
sorry.
have a tasting there?
It's possible. Okay.
So then on page 128, the next item is actually for the same project, the USS Constellation. This is a pre-authorization the House added for $750,000 in fiscal 23.
Since it seems like we're taking care of it now, I'd move to delete the pre-authorization.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Keep it afloat. Keep it afloat now. All right.
Okay, and then at the bottom of page 128, the next group of projects are the Baltimore Penn Station redevelopment. And then I'll list a couple at a time. So then the VFW Free State Post 217 parking lot project, the Riviera Beach Volunteer Fire Company, the Glen Burnie Improvement Association 3rd Avenue Park project, the Baltimore Washington Medical Center Critical Care Unit project, and then, the Cross Street Market project, Forest Park Senior Center, Oliver Community Center, Asian American Center of Frederick, Gilchrist Center, Baltimore, City of Annapolis Parks and Playgrounds, Gwynns Falls Trail, Prologue Outreach Center, the Liberty Road Volunteer Fire Company, the North County High School Fieldhouse, the Central Avenue Connector Trail, the Willett Branch Greenway, Greenbelt Station Hiker and Biker Trail, the St. Mary's County Regional Airport, the Innovative Center for Autonomous Systems, and then the Attic Towers Apartments. So these are all projects that the House added a variety of different grant levels for, but you might want to consider those as a group.
I would move them all as a group and up until attic towers.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
So then that brings you to page 141. So this begins, there's the Greenmount Corridor redevelopment project that the House added. They had this grant at $1.5 million.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Oh, I think I'd like, Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
this is for Greenmount Corridor redevelopment project, correct?
Right.
ZA, I think I'd like to make it for a total of 2 million.
Okay. Is there a
Second.
Okay, good clarification. All in favor?
Aye.
Right at the bottom of page 141, I'll begin another group of projects. So the first is Community Playgrounds Revitalization, the Reginald F. Lewis Museum of Maryland African American History and Culture, the Baltimore County Schools, Parks and Playgrounds, the Zeta Sigma Foundation Community Center, the Community Empowerment and Wellness Center, the Coppin Heights West North Avenue Revitalization Project. So you might want to consider these as a group. Excuse me, these are all projects that the House added a variety of different grant levels for.
Move to concur with the House actions through the Coppin Heights, taking them as a group.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Capital consent agenda there. You go. All right.
The next item the House added was a grant for the Port Discovery project, and the House added $250,000 for that project.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to modify, if that's okay, and just add another 250 to make it 500,000.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And then these next ones I'll also list as a group. So the House added grants for Roberta's House, for the Blue Line Corridor Public Arts Project, or excuse me, art project.
Can we go to do all these except for the Blue Line Corridor Public Arts projects? We'll have a separate vote on that.
Sure. So I'll read the rest of the project. So Roberta's House, and then we can, you all can separate Blue Line Corridor Public Art Projects. There's the Friendsville Veterans Memorial, the Baltimore City Farms Project, the Glen Burnie Streetlights Project, a First Fruit Farms Project, and then the Orhadash Academy Project. So those are all miscellaneous grants that the House added to the capital budget.
Okay. So let's make a motion to adopt all these except for the Blue Line Corridor Public Art projects.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's make a separate motion for Blue Line Corridor Public Art projects. So our colleague can take a roll.
Move to concur.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Take the roll.
got it. All right. All right.
So then next up on page 150, Matt, if there was, I think that's your item.
Yes, on page 150 through 153, there are 5 items that the governor brought in to strike House of Delegates and Senate local initiatives for failure to meet the match. The House rejected this. This would be item 52 through 56. The House rejected that to restore the funds and struck the matching fund requirement.
Okay.
I move to concur with the House on all their actions.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so I believe that brings you to page 154. So these are all new miscellaneous grants for your consideration. So there's the Green Branch Athletic Complex funded at $6 million, and the Prince George's County Public Schools turf fields funded at $9.2 million on page 154.
Just keep going and we'll adopt them all unless somebody has a problem, or do you want to do them individually?
I can read through them as a group, and then you can
I see a
cover them as a
I
group
see a
if you'd like.
consent agenda for the capital. All right, let's keep going.
Okay, on page 155, Johns Hopkins Medicine New Medical Research Building. And then at the bottom of that, there's a pre-authorization for that same project for $7.5 million in fiscal 23.
Okay.
The next is New Cultural Center, that's in Howard County. The first item is adding $1 million as a grant in fiscal 22. And then the second item is adding a pre-authorization in fiscal 23 that would also be $1 million.
Mr. Chair, Mr.
Is that
Chair,
the name of it? Is that the right name for that?
I don't know if that's I'm not sure that it actually has a new name yet.
And somebody does.
Is it the Columbia Center for the?
Theatrical Arts is the
Theatrical Arts?
grantee. They're the grantee.
Okay,
It's a mixed-use project that includes a number of things. And so I'm not sure if they've actually named it. It has Toby's Dinner Theater that everyone knows that's getting torn down and rebuilt with some housing, and it's a whole new project.
does this work, or you want to change the language, you think? I just want to make sure it goes to the right place.
Well, I think the grantee is clear.
Okay,
If the grantee is clear and there's any discrepancy in the project name, that would be considered an administrative change that section 1.9 would be able to fix if there were any problems post adoption of the bill.
Okay.
Section
I
19. Wow.
I think we're fine then.
Section 19.
However, Mr. Chair, if you wouldn't mind, could I get the 2 years of 1 million pre-auth?
Okay,
Can I get 1 more year of pre-auth?
sure. Let's make,
And I could probably, by the time we get off here, get a better name for it.
okay, let's do this. Let's make a motion to adopt the pages 154, 155. Is there a motion to do that for those
So
projects?
moved.
Is there a
So
second?
moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now let's go to 156 and we'll make a motion to adopt ZAODD and ZF 4211 and then add another year of $1 million for the following fiscal year. Is that correct? Okay. Is there
So
a second?
moved.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. So then that brings you all to page 157, and I'll continue reading them as a group until you all would like to read it stop. So the Dr. First Mobile Communication System is $500,000 in fiscal 22. Germantown Volunteer Fire Department is $3.25 million. On page 158, the West Arlington Playground Project is $100,000. On page 159, the Chesapeake Bay Environmental Center Pavilion and Kayak Launch is $125,000. The Annapolis Overhead Utilities Undergrounding is for $250,000. The Kettering Largo Mitchellville Boys and Girls Club project is funded at $100,000, or excuse me, yes, $100,000. And then on page 161, there's the Maryland Fire Rescue Services Memorial Project funded at $250,000 for your consideration. On page 162, there's the Talbot County Athletic Fields for $200,000, and then another Talbot County project called the Neighborhood Service Center that would also be $200,000. On page 163, there's a project for the Olney Satellite Police Station and Community Facility funded at $100,000. On page 164, there's the City of District Heights Senior Day Facility is at $500,000. On page 165, there's another Blue Line Corridor related project. This is for infrastructure. So I don't know if you want to stop at page 164 and
We're okay. It's a different project. Different project.
Can I ask a question? I haven't seen it in any of the papers here today, but the Islamic Center,
That's an LBI, I think.
it's an LBI. Okay.
It was
All right, thank you.
Senator Kramer's,
Yeah.
and it was fully funded.
Okay.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
just for what it's worth, that is the correct name
Okay,
on the new cultural center.
New
Just
cultural
because-
center.
so we're okay. We don't need section 19, whatever that crazy thing you said, Matthew. Okay. All right, very good. Thank you. All right,
Thank you.
okay, so then continuing, so Blue Line Corridor Infrastructure Project is on page 165. That's $8.9 million. The Harriet Tubman Statue Project in Dorchester County, that is funded, that has $50,000. On the bottom of page 166, there's the RiseTech Global Verge Data Analytics Platform Project. That's for your consideration at $500,000.
Mr. Chair,
On page,
yes, sir.
were you able to get the grantee information correct?
Wasn't the grantee Rise Tech? I don't think they wanted to go to the Maryland Department of Transportation, right?
Right.
So the grantee is Rise Tech Global.
Yep.
Is that what we have there, Matthew or Ann?
we currently have the grantee as the Maryland Transit Administration, so we can change
We don't want
that.
We don't want that. You're right.
Right, and then is the name of the project the
Yeah.
analytics platform?
Yes, Rise
so-
Tech Global Verge Data, right.
And then, sorry, so the grantee would be I'm sorry, I'm a little unclear on who the grantee would be if that's the project name.
The company's name is Rise Tech.
Okay. Sure. So we will update that language for the for this action then.
Okay. Good catch.
So then to continue on page 167, there's the Prince George's Indoor Sport Facility is $300,000. There's a Shepherd Pratt Hospital item on the bottom.
Stop right here. Stop. Beep. Okay, so through pages 167, ZA00DS, do we have a move to adopt?
Mr. Chairman, I think actually we're starting with page 157.
157 to 167.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
With the
ZAOODS.
with the modification of the Rise Tech Global language.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good. Now, this will be one separate. Okay.
Okay, so then on the bottom of page 167, there's an item for your consideration for the Shepherd Pratt Hospital at the Towson campus. That grant is currently for your consideration at $2.5 million.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to
So
adopt.
moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, one person taking the roll.
Take the roll.
Look at that.
Okay, and I'll continue on this list. So on page 168, there's a project for the Kennedy Krieger Institute Gompers School Building. Is at $1 million. The upper, on page 169, the Upper Marlboro streetscape improvements is $450,000. The Woodlawn Senior Center is at $3 million. West Arlington Water Tower project is $250,000. The Trade Point Atlantic Infrastructure Improvements project is at $3 million. The Severn Intergenerational Center is at $2 million. And then at the bottom of page 172, there's a authorization for your consideration for the Howard County Asian American Cultural Center for $250,000. And then on page 173, there are two more actions related to the same project that would pre-authorize $250,000 in fiscal 23 and then the same amount in fiscal 24. Okay, and then continuing on, page 174, there's a grant for your consideration for the National Great Blacks and Wax Museum at $750,000. The Old Town Bowie Historic Properties Project for $300,000 in fiscal 22. And then on page 175, there's a pre-authorization for that same project for $500,000 in fiscal 23. At the bottom of page 175, there's Montgomery County Route 355 Bus Rapid Transit Project, and that grant would be $6 million in fiscal 22. The Savage Mill Trail Project in Howard counties, there is for your consideration at $250,000. There's the Ellicott City Main Street Building Reconstruction, also, excuse me, that grant is at $500,000. The Patapsco Regional Greenway, that's shown for $1.25 million. The Chesapeake Beach Park Project, that's $150,000. On page 178, there's the North Beach Park Projects, that's $150,000. And the Maryland Science Center for $500,000. On page 179, there's the Family Crisis Center. For fiscal 22, the authorization shown there is $175,000. And then there's also a pre-authorization for your consideration that would be $500,000 in fiscal 23. On page 180, there's the Hagerstown Minor League Baseball Stadium. That would be $1.5 million grant. And then there's the Ellicott City Quaker Second School Building, and that is for your consideration as a $100,000 grant. On page 181, there's this begins some more miscellaneous grants for pre-authorizations. So the first is the Morning Star Family Life Center. This would pre-authorize $1.4 million in fiscal 23. At the bottom of page 181, there's the Burtonsville Crossing Shopping Center that would pre-authorize $3.5 million in fiscal 23. And then on page 182, there's the Warrior Canine Connection Project, and that would be pre-authorized in fiscal 23 for $500,000. So for your consideration, those are all the projects beginning on page, let me just clarify
68.
exactly where it says.
168.
168. Okay, so pages 168 and then moving on through pages 182. All those projects are for your consideration.
Move to adopt as a consent calendar.
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let me go back to page 173, Howard County Asian Arts Cultural Center. The House wants to add another $250,000 for signage. You okay with that, Mr. Chair? Okay, so let's make a motion. We get a motion.
moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's also go back to,
Sorry, excuse me, Mr. Chair, can I clarify one thing about that? So the Asian American Cultural Center has actions for fiscal 22 and then 2 pre-authorizations. So can I just clarify, you would like to add 250? Okay, so you'd like to add $250,000, or excuse me, you all just moved to add 250,000 to the fiscal 22 amount.
that's what,
Did they give a specific request for that in there? Did you say something else? I didn't. Did they say something about signage?
no, I had the wrong item.
Oh, okay. So just to go
Yeah.
along with that project.
Yeah, my fault.
Perfect.
That was another house item.
Perfect.
Okay, can we also go back to page 111? Sorry, everybody. Just again, I'm trying to put in the house changes so we can not have to do it tomorrow. Here. Okay. To North Bay.
So when we went through that the motion was to add 250,000 to a total of 750,000. That's what the committee had voted on.
Okay, we'd like to add, we'd like to put that to, so that'll take the 750, right?
Yes.
So we want to take it to $1 million there. We want to add 250. Okay, is there a motion to do that?
Move to $1 million.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay,
Which page was that?
111. These are more house actions.
Got it.
So we're knocking their stuff out at the same time.
Got it.
Okay. All right, I'm sorry. Let's go to the next one.
We were down to page 183. Page 183 and 184 are technical amendments to change prior year language that would authorize bond premiums. This was requested by the treasurer in the first house adopted.
Or
Both
with the house. On the 2 technical.
So then actually there are additional miscellaneous grants for your consideration. So they are not in the packet, but I can share my screen to have you all consider these actions. Is that fine with you all?
Sure.
Let me pull up that packet. So these are all additional miscellaneous grants for your consideration. The first one is the Warner Street Entertainment District. For your consideration is a $3 million miscellaneous grant.
Okay, so move to
So
adopt.
moved.
Second. All in favor?
Second. Okay, yay.
Another project is the Pleasant View Park. This is a grant for $250,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The next is the Baltimore Museum of Industry. This would be a $413,500 grant.
Okay, is there a motion second?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next one is for a St. Ambrose housing project, and that would be a $900,000 grant.
Okay, is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Where's- oh, it's down behind.
The next item for your consideration is the Parkville High School turf field and athletic facilities. The grant would be $700,000.
Move to adopt.
Okay, is there a second?
A second for my alma mater.
Is that right? So we
Yeah.
went to school?
It is.
Senator
How about that?
Klausmeyer, man, she's laying claim to this one. So I don't know if it would be the Klausmeyer-Gazoni
Oh, yeah,
field
it
or
is.
the Gazoni-Klausmeyer field. I don't know. You guys can do it
Wow.
now.
Bob Owens High School.
How about that?
The next project for your consideration is the Towson Armory Building. That grant would be for $500,000.
Okay. Is there
Move to
a
adopt.
motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The Kaplan's Facade Restoration Project, this grant would be $500,000.
Is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure we actually took a vote on the chairman's high school project there. You said something, he started talking, but I don't think you called for the
All right,
vote.
let's go back. Let's go back.
Didn't hear
Is he gonna have to recuse himself, you think?
it. No.
Did you play any sports there?
Is he still in high school?
I ran cross country.
Okay, was there a
All
track?
right, move
His
to
name
adopt.
on the scoreboard.
Yeah, the scoreboard. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, is there a motion?
Move to adopt.
Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Should we do a roll call or?
Oh.
Okay, we'll just go with consensus. All right.
Can we separate that one out and have? the
Yeah,
vote
let's
on the board?
separate it out. Yeah,
Move to modify for name change.
exactly. Okay. Can we go back to St. Ambrose for a minute?
You're fine.
We have a house addition. We might as well do that. They want to add another 100 there if everybody's okay with that. So let's make it.
Move to adopt,
Okay.
make it 1 million.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. I'm knocking this list out here. Okay. Thank you.
I believe the next project is the East Columbia 50 Plus Center. This grant would be for $1 million.
Okay. Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Next up would be the Fort Washington Medical Center. This grant would be for $700,000.
Okay. Move
To adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Next up is the Hyattsville Police and Public Safety Headquarters. This grant would be for $500,000.
Okay. Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next up would be the Manor House. This would be for a $241,500 grant.
Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
For the Mission of Love project, this would be a $760,000 grant.
Okay, and for those of you who, the 240 came in on the other side, so they'll get their full million. This is a very, very good group in Prince George's, so, okay. Move to adopt.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's my
And then I believe
favorite, my
this-
favorite one right here. The Ocean City Life Saving Museum.
All right.
I believe this is the last project for your consideration. This grant would be for $450,000.
Okay,
Move to adopt.
is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Save those lives.
I don't know what's gonna be in there, but it's gonna be interesting.
And then the final action for your consideration begins on page 185 of your documents. These are the fiscal 21 legislative initiatives. So that goes from page 185, 186, and it goes through the end of this document to page 196.
Anyone give everybody a minute to kind of flip through and make sure.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
one of the projects' name was spelled wrong. I didn't catch that. They got it in there as Redicky. It's Radicky, R-A-D, not R-E-D.
Is this in the LBI list?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I guess it was more for Ann and Matt.
Radicky. Okay, R-A-D instead of R-E-D.
Yep. They filled out the LBI form wrong.
Radicky Park. Okay.
And the last question, Mr. Chair, and this is for Matt. Hey, Matt, we talked about North Central Park and the naming in reference to making sure that the city council does that resolution to rename it. Were we able to get to that?
If not, I'll make sure it gets in there for the document for tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
And who was it named after?
Senator Nathaniel McFadden.
There you go. Okay. Very magnanimous of you, man. Honestly. Okay. Although many of us who've been here for a while would probably say Great Blacks in Wax should bear his name.
And maybe a statue or two.
Or 3 or 4.
It was the Great Whites in Tights that we were looking for.
Oh my gosh. You're bad.
That was
bad.
That was what McFadden used to call it.
So, okay. I think I told everybody before, Freeman Hrabowski's in there.
Senator McFadden.
And it's amazing likeness of him. I mean, It's amazing. So, okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, on these,
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
on
Yes.
these local bond initiatives, do I move them to adopt, or
Yeah, I think, should we do them as a package? Another consent agenda?
That's right.
that's okay with you, Mr. Chair? I move to adopt local bond initiatives that are presented today. And I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Chairman, for you and the chairman of the committee for all your tireless work on this.
Thank you. Thank you.
You did amazing job.
Amen.
Senator Peters, really amazing job.
Debits and credits, right? I have to give so much thanks to Matthew Klein and
How about Lori Morris, who was the one that held you
Morris. I was
together?
going to finish with that if you just give me a minute, but emails going back and forth at 4 o'clock in the morning and Sundays.
I'll probably walk down. I still have
You know.
some calls. Thank you.
Patty's got an issue there. Anyway, so yeah, of course I'm going to give Lori all the credit, you know. So, but yeah, she's been my right hand on this. So yeah, but thank you, Matthew and Ann and Emily. I mean, Sunday for a couple hours we're going through this. So, but thank you guys. Thanks for giving me the opportunity.
You did a good job.
Just
Great
spent $1
job.
billion in 2 hours, so you can tell everybody that.
Move to adopt the local bond initiatives.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Okay,
All right.
Do we
so
have-
a question.
Yes, freshman member of capital budget.
Thank you. The LBIs, what's on this sheet are in addition to what were on the previous pages, correct?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. And you can see most of them we trued up unless the House didn't want me to, so I didn't. That's their issue. Okay, so do we need to do a full motion on the whole packet here?
Probably do.
Okay,
That's tomorrow.
tomorrow. Okay, so we will have, I have a list of about 15 items that the House is still wanting us to put in here. We didn't have time to do all the color
Oh, my
pages.
gosh.
But what the good news is once we vote those tomorrow, when we're voting on the floor Monday, then we don't have a conference. It is done. So the capital will be done.
You can't pass the capital budget in finality through third year until you pass the operating budget.
Oh,
The whole third reader on the capital bill until the operating bill is finished.
but that should be done, you think? Chairman, you think that'll be done?
We're working on it. We'll get there.
Oh my gosh, I gotta wait for you.
You do.
Tell everybody the bank is closed because I can't keep
So there
coming.
won't be any
To the teller window.
conference with the operating budget?
We're still working on that. Yeah, there'll be a conference.
Okay. All right, well, we'll be ready then. So we could just put it on.
So should we go find some more projects?
That's exactly what I was saying, not is to happen. The bank is closed.
Well, that's what the
Teller
House
window
is
is
doing.
So,
Are we doing like, can you top this? I have a few more.
freshman. Okay. All right. So are we not going to move to do the whole document? Senator, I'm sorry. Are you just waving? Oh, okay. Okay. So that concludes our meeting. Thank you everybody for all your work, and we'll be back at it, I think, tomorrow to report out, and we will have some extra documents, but it's what the House wants, and we'll get this all done.
No, I thought you said we had some extra dollars.
I'm telling you.
Pushy broad.
I didn't say that. I'm not saying anything. I took my class already.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Let's get off here.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye.